In this video, I'm going to share with you something that I get asked about a lot, which is my creative strategy. What is my creative strategy? What are my creative strategy principles to do 42K in a day and do regular 40K days, 35K days, whatever the case may be. So just to get that out of the way, this is one of my brands combined earn over $1 million a month. So make over $1 million a month in revenue. Currently, I also coach, mentor, whatever you want to call it, over 25 brands. So to basically run their acquisition in-house. And the whole portfolio is spending close to $2 million a month now, right? So this is where all of this comes from that I'm going to share with you right now. Okay, so the question is, what's the 40K per day creative strategy principle, right? So how do we get to creatives on a regular that are completely changing the trajectory of an account, right? This is what I'm going to share with you today. First of all, we're going to talk about how to stand out and why this is important. Secondly, we're going to talk about to basically have different ads for different funnel stages, okay? So let's jump right in. Number one is really standing out. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to just rip competitors, right? This is something that I see a lot. Also other guys here on YouTube sharing, just rip competitors. Just look at all of your competitors, do the exact same thing. The problem with that is that this might work here and there. You might get to a certain level, but at some point, it's going to be very, very tough to scale past that. And I'm going to explain to you why. You have to imagine Meta, basically kind of like a pond, okay? So all of your competitors, including yourself, obviously, we're all fishing in the same pond, okay? And we all get in front of, we're all basically competing for the attention of the same target audience, okay? Now, when we basically just take the exact same scripts, the exact same, whatever the case may be, UGC testimonials, blah, 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 and we just do the exact same thing like all of our competitors, there is no differentiation, right? So it just makes the competition even harder, right? And it makes it even harder to be profitable and to actually make money on the first acquisition, right? So what we want to do instead is to really find a way to be unique and to be perceived as unique. Because another problem is that how Meta works, how the algorithm works, like Meta is not stupid. They obviously know if you've launched the exact same thing like a competitor or multiple competitors, right? So they're looking for the best user experience possible. And obviously, if there's already something that is established and you come in as the second or third one that does the exact same thing, you're not going to get the same gains as somebody that was the first mover, right? I think that makes sense. So this is not really the way to go. Now, the next thing that I see is that people just, throw in their product in ChatGPT and they tell ChatGPT, hey, just write a couple of UGC scripts, right? With all these things, you always have to think, it is a competition at the end of the day. This is an auction, okay? We are basically bidding with the assets that we have to get in front of the right person, right? And these right people here, they're limited. It's not unlimited, okay? So it is a competition and we have to find a way to stand out. Otherwise, we're just like that's the next thing, we're just another face cream, we're just another face serum, another gut supplement, right? So in order to avoid that, this is what we have to do, and I'm going to walk you through that, okay? So the very first thing is that we really deeply understand our target audience and also how our product solves their pain point, right? Because this is the foundation. I talk about it in almost all of my videos, and I'm going to continue to hammer this in to everyone that is watching, that this is really the foundation of creating unique assets that still follow a certain principles, right? But they're absolutely unique, and those are the assets that enable you to scale for months with certain creatives, right? And this is something that I see in my portfolio, like overlooking close to 30 brands. I see that there are ads still to this day that you can literally run for months and they're profitable, right? In very competitive niches. Okay, so this is the very first thing, right? Understanding that. Then another thing is obviously studying what's working, what's trending on organic, right? So again, we're looking for different ways to access this person, right? We want to be outside of the competition and basically be rewarded by Meta to have something new, to have a new twist on something that, on a pain point that people try to resolve, okay? So here, another thing is to study what's trending on organic, right? Instead of just looking at the competitors and ripping what they do, what you could do is you could go to Instagram. You can basically hit the search bar and you type in keywords that describe the pain point that people have in your target audience. So, for example, it could be wrinkles, right? Or I don't know, like hip pain, or gut problems, right? Or bloating. You type that in, you go to Reels, and you basically study what are the Reels that have like millions of views, okay? What do people say there? What's the hook looking like, right? So there's so much that you can learn from that. And then the next idea is basically to transfer and remake those for your own brand, for your own product, right? So those are more unique ideas that are kind of like pre-tested, right? Because it seems that the content that was shared there, how it was cut, that this really worked, and it was viral, essentially. So you're using this in order to fuel your creative strategy. This works like magic for some of my clients in the mentorship that use this strategy. It's fantastic, right? Because you get new, fresh ideas, and you're not competing with what everybody else is doing, right? Another problem, actually, just quickly going back to this one, right, to the competitors thing, is you have no idea how their ad account is looking like. You have no idea how their P&L is looking like. So why would you just rip off something where you don't even know if it works, right? And people say, well, yeah, but it's like a $50 million brand, or it's like a $30 million brand. But the thing is, like, you don't know, like, how important is the paid ads part in their overall strategy, right? Are they really, like, do they really have to be profitable in paid ads? Or do they have other channels, like more established channels like retail or whatever, native? Like, you cannot fully see that, okay? So that's why, yes, you can, you rip a couple of ads here and there, but to really get to 8 figures quickly, I would not rely on this strategy. Okay, so the next one, very unique as well, is what I call story selling. Is things like founder ads, right? VSLs would also fall into this category, but founder ads is what is very easy to do for most of the brands. Okay, so what you're doing there is basically not just telling like how I founded my brand, right? And then you start from Adam and Eva and all the way, to now. Like, nobody watches that. Nobody really cares. What we do is we look at our research. Again, goes back to understanding what their pain points are, and we basically fuel our founder story with what people are struggling with, right? So we're taking them from where they are, but we're wrapping this into a founder story. Incredibly effective, right? Incredibly effective, especially if you are, as a founder, have no problem getting in front of the camera. If you have, trust me, try it. Give it a try. Give it a try, because I've seen it time and time again that these types of creatives are absolutely changing the whole business. And I'm not like, this is not like an that I'm trying to push you into something. Like, I don't have anything from that, but trust me, founder ads, if they're done right, are absolutely crazy. Like, I've seen brands go from literally like 10, 15K to 300, 400K, from 40K to a million a month. And when you look at the main creatives, they were founder ads, right? So in my mentoring, like, I have a full section on how to write these founder ads because it's so important. So next one, take concepts from other niches into yours. Now, look at this, like, let's go back to this individual that finally gets hit on their feet with all of our ads. This is our niche, okay? But there are also other niches because obviously they have, other interests, they have other pain points. So in these other niches, again, we have a bunch of competitors, right, that run ads. Now, we can also learn from that, right? And basically take a concept from another niche and bring it into ours. Again, this gives us an advantage, obviously, if they work, but then we are the first ones, or one of the first ones, that make these concepts work in our niche, right? So one example could be something like a podcast ad. Lastly, I saw like a podcast ad, but it was they were filming in a bed, right? So it was basically or couches, right? So super chill atmosphere, and they were just talking about a specific pain point and how to resolve it, right? So you can take such a concept and bring it into your niche, right? So there are a couple of ideas here to really stand out, and I hope it's it's clear to you now why it's so important, because you don't want to compete with everybody else. You want to create your blue ocean in a way, right? So this is what I do in my brands. This is what I do with all of the brands in my portfolio, and that's why we're able to like scale one of my brands to like 900K now within just a little bit more than a year in a very, very competitive niche, right? Because we are doing things differently. Now, next thing, different ads for different funnel stages. What does that mean? So what you should not do, what I see a lot of brands do, is just like having one creative type. It is the one thing. You have to do UGC. And obviously, like, this is what UGC agencies tell you because that's what they sell. You should be doing UGC all day. That's the only thing, right? Now, the problem with that is that you need, and just to like already tell you that, you need a mix of different creative types to really serve all the funnel stages of your funnel, okay? This is the most efficient way so that you can literally like squeeze the funnel more and just have an overall better efficiency, okay? Again, this is not, something that not a lot of people talk about because this is really from a brand perspective. Like, that's what you need. An agency, they don't necessarily provide you with that, okay? Again, another thing that they do is that they basically look at return on ad spend and CPA in the ads manager, right? So this is another thing where you really have to be careful. You really have to be careful with that because when you do that, you're missing out on a lot of information that is super, super important, right? Which is, in which funnel stage is this creative, right? So what's the funnel stage that I'm actually looking at? Because if you don't know that, then the return on ad spend doesn't really tell you anything. Give me 1 second. I'll just charge my laptop to not lose anything of this video. Okay, back. So so the other thing is obviously just looking at CPA. And this is something that I want to explain right now because this is something that I see a lot and it's literally hurting too many brands, which is unnecessary, okay? So as you might know, a lot of people, and I actually have other videos on that where I talk about, why return on ad spend is a scam. But going deeper into that, essentially, what you hear a lot is, agencies, whatever, gurus, they just talk about return on ad spend. Okay, yeah, this creative had like a 6 return on ad spend. They show screenshots of creatives that have like a, I don't know, like 4 return on ad spend, and they spend 10K. Wow. But the problem is that it's missing all the context, right? So to give you an example, you can have different, like return on ad spend is not always return on ad spend, right? You cannot just value it the same way, because let's simplify this, okay? Let's say you have top of funnel, you have middle of funnel, and you have bottom of funnel, okay? Now, each part of the funnel needs different creatives, right? So there are creatives that are very, very good at getting out and bringing people in, right? Bringing people into your ecosystem, making that first touch point. Okay, so those are creatives that are essentially in this top of funnel category. Then you have creatives that are very good at converting people on the second or third or fourth touch point, right? Where it's about like educating them a little bit more on your product, maybe sending them to like another educational page, right? So, and then you have bottom of funnel creatives that are just like, hey, get this, I don't know, offer right now, or here's the product, here's some product features, and buy now, essentially, okay? And you need the reality is that you need all 3 of those. You need the different types of creatives, right? But these bottom of funnel creatives obviously will have a high return on ad spend. So let's say the return on ad spend is a 4. Great, amazing. Now, when you look at the return on ad spend of this top of funnel creative, it might be a 1.6. And you might be like, it's just a 1.6. It's not so great. I mean, here we have the creative with the 4. Let's turn off this top of funnel thing. That's the worst thing that you can do. And this shows that there's no understanding of how these things work together. Because you can only have the 4 return on ad spend in bottom of funnel if you invest into top of funnel, and you basically have these creatives that have a lower, they have a lower return on ad spend, yes, but they also have a way lower frequency. And this is the key word here. If you don't have this in your ads manager, or if you want to, let's say, challenge your agency and just make them share their screen and look at their dashboard and look if they have frequency on their dashboard. Because if they don't have frequency on their dashboard, I kid you not, they cannot make proper decisions. It's impossible. It's literally impossible. And I'm looking at, I looked at hundreds of ad accounts. I looked at hundreds of brands, and I'm helping them clean up a lot of messes that agencies have done, or freelancers, or whatever the case may be. But if you don't have frequency in your dashboard, you literally cannot make any decisions, right? Because this will tell you, okay, this top of funnel creatives, let's say those are below 1.2, right? Just to give you some numbers, let's say 1.2 until 2 and above 2. So what this means is that a low frequency means that they get in front of new people all the time. So it's not that we're getting in front of the same people over and over again, which is the bottom of funnel. So you need these kinds of creatives, because they can really, help you fuel this funnel, right? Those are the ones that get out and get the people in. Yes, of course, we want them to convert on the first session, but not all the people will do it. Some people need just more massaging with more creatives until they finally convert, right? And that's why, just having like one creative type is a sure way to, for sure you're not squeezing everything that you could squeeze out of your funnel. That's what I want to say. Now, another thing is obviously this one size fits all. Yes, your agency or an agency might be, I'm sorry, I'm ranting a little bit on agencies, not a little bit, a lot actually. But it's just because like I talk to so many founders, and I'm not talking bad about all the agencies. This is not true. I know a couple of guys that are crushing it in their agencies, but they follow these principles, right? They follow these principles, but those are like maybe 1 or 2% of the agencies, literally. It's sad, but it's true. So a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't really make sense, right? Because every brand has a different target audience, has a different sophistication of the market, and needs a different stack of creatives to really make it work, right? And if you don't respect that, and if you just throw up a bunch of I don't know, like 3 reasons why UGC creatives, it's just not gonna cut it. I'm sorry, right? Okay, end of the rant. But I hope you understand that it's so important. That's why I'm doing these videos, right? Just so that you get a different perspective, right? A different perspective from someone who doesn't have misaligned incentives, right? You're a brand owner just like I am, and that's what I want for my brands. So the next thing, like how do you fix that, is really understanding the buyer's journey and the sophistication of your target audience. Now, what do I mean by that? So the usual thing, or let's say what's happening in the heads of a lot of people, is they think, well, I do this ad and then someone buys, okay? They think of it as like a one-time transaction, like you see the ad and you click and you purchase, right? But I mean, who does that, right? Maybe like 1 to 3%, that's really good already, of the people that see your ad, maybe even less. Then also it depends on your price point, right? If you have a high price product, this journey might take way longer. For example, I have a couple of brands in my portfolio. They have like a $300, $350, $400 AOV. I mean, you don't make this decision just on the fly because you see one cool ad, right? This is something that you might discuss with your partner. This is something that you might check their Instagram out a little bit more. You need a couple of reminders, right? And then eventually you make the decision after like 7 or 14 days, right? So it's not as simple as just this one line, okay? So what happens in reality, and this is actually, I mean, I might make a separate video about this, but I think it's super important to share this right now. So how I think about any transaction, like any purchase, is really that I think about it in multiple steps, okay? So the first thing that I want to do is I'm collecting mini commitments, okay? So it's not a purchase in that sense, like people don't pay me money for that, but I want to have the assets in place so that I'm able to do it. So number one is basically, I want to sell the people on the problem, okay? What do I mean by that? I want to make sure that they understand that I understand their pain and their problems, right? Because if I can vividly describe their pain and what's keeping them up at night, right? That this is something that makes them say, "Whoa, like he seems to know everything that I experience," right? Or this brand, like they seem to know exactly what I'm like, my pain, and I'm trying to resolve that. And then you got their attention. You always have to start where they are. That's the point. Like we don't start with our product. We have to start where they are, right? And then you basically talk about, okay, this is the problem. I understand your problem. So they can internally say, yeah, that's me. This is exactly what I experience. Then you got their attention. Now, the next thing is to do the same thing for the solution, okay? So the next little commitment. So now I have to sell them on the type of solution for that problem, for this pain point, right? So that's where I tell them, hey, basically, like you might know a couple of, you might know a couple of other solutions. You might have tried them out, and they all failed, right? But the reason why is that they're only tackling the surface. They're not really addressing the root cause that is actually causing your pain or your problems that you had in the first place. And that's why we created this specific product that tackles the root cause and therefore solves it way better than all the other stuff that you've tried out before. Okay? So then I'm basically zeroing in on the type of solution, and this gives me enough commitment to then present and to pitch basically my product. Okay? So that's where I then talk about, this is the product, those are the ingredients, those are the benefits, like those are how these ingredients solve the root cause and therefore solve your pain point. And this is, like a wall of testimonials of hundreds or thousands of people that were in the same exact situation that you were. They tried out all these solutions and failed, and then they found my product and now it's working. Okay? So that's where I then know, okay, I sold the product, and the last thing is actually to make them a customer, to help them become a customer by making them an offer that is so good they would be stupid saying no. Okay? So now you see this difference. You see the difference. We go from here to here. And again, like, nobody's doing this here. People are too lazy. They just want to think that a transaction is really this, when in reality, it's this thing here. Okay? So yes, it's a little bit more work, but I mean, what are we trying to do here? Like, we want to be successful. We want to be successful with this. So we need to dig a little bit deeper. And the deeper you dig with these things here, that's the competitive advantage, right? So anyways, then obviously I want to create assets for the different stages of awareness. So I just showed you this here, right? We need assets for this here, okay? Which are mainly like those top of funnel creatives, right? That go out and take people from where they are, they address the problem, and then lead into solution product and so on and so forth. Obviously, I'm trying to sell them on the first, on the first touch point, but I'm also making sure that I have other assets that talk about the solution. All right. For example, those are like these, basically, product A versus product B, or product type A versus product type B, right? Where you basically show this is the old way and this is the new way. Okay. So just to give you one example. Then obviously product creatives, where you sell the product more, where you maybe have testimonials, right, of people, UGC testimonials, where people say this product changed my life, blah blah blah. Then yeah, exactly, and that's it, right? So already you see you have different kinds of assets and different kinds of messages and creatives for each of the funnel stages, right? So then you will look at frequency and use it to judge the CPA, right? Which is what we just discussed earlier, right? You have to look at the frequency. You have to understand, what type of creative is it that I'm looking at? Is it a top of funnel creative? Is it a bottom of funnel creative? If it is a top of funnel creative, what other top of funnel creatives do I have running? And how does it compare against these, right? You cannot compare a top of funnel creative with a bottom of funnel creative. It's like comparing like apples with pears. It doesn't make sense. Okay. Now, back to the last point here, which is, finally, as you can see, you need a unique ad strategy for your product and target audience. And one example that I want to say there is, like, this is one thing that I mentioned here, the sophistication, right? If you're in a market where the target audience, like your prospects, they have tried out a bunch of stuff before, right? A bunch of stuff. They are basically burnt from trying out stuff that doesn't work, super skeptical, okay? You might need more convincing creatives in this bottom of funnel and middle of funnel. For example, having tons of testimonials, like having real screenshots of testimonials on your static ads or on your video ads, where you can, like, you basically have to massage them. That's what I showed you here. You have to massage them more so that they understand, wow, okay, if there's so much social proof, if there's so much third-party proof, I might really give it a try. Or, for example, like push the guarantee in bottom of funnel, right? The cool thing is, you don't have to worry about how much do I spend in bottom of funnel, middle of funnel, blah, blah, blah. That's what we do with our campaign setup, okay? I shared that in another video, the exact campaign setup that I use. So you don't need to worry about that. But we need to worry about the assets that we put in, okay? So yeah, to summarize, stand out, be unique. Don't do this, like, don't be lazy. Don't do the same stuff that all the other people do. It's not necessarily lazy, right? You could also just like hammer out tons of creatives and still fail. So it's really about understanding this here, and then also just creating different ads, different assets for different funnel stages. Super crucial. If you respect these two principles, you will be way more successful when it comes to scaling your whole account, your whole business finally. And this is exactly what I do in my brands. This is how we do 40K days. This is how I help my portfolio companies to scale to 8 figures without hiring an agency, right? Because this stuff, like, you need to own this stuff. That's my philosophy. You cannot really like expect from somebody on the outside to think like that for you. Okay, so this is exactly how I help brands that, let's say, on different stages, right? Maybe it's you want to hit the first 100K per month, or you're at 100K and you want to get to 8 figures, to an 8-figure run rate as quick as possible, right? Or you are already doing 8 figures, multiple 8 figures, and you basically just want to train your team in-house, and stop spending, I don't know, 30, 40 grand a month for an agency. Like, I help brands along the line, right? I have clients in all of these different categories. So yeah, if this is interesting to you, just click the link below, and we can have a chat and see if I can help you and provide some value. All right. See you on the next one. Take care.